Hello and welcome to the presentation video of results from Ireland's Labour Force Survey, or LFS, for Quarter 2 2023 on today the 24th of August 2023. The LFS is a household survey carried out by the Central Statistics Office and is the official source of employment and unemployment estimates in Ireland. The official labour market classification of respondents to the survey is based on International Labour Organization, or ILO, concepts and definitions. And you can find out more information about the survey from the website or by contacting us at labour@cso.ie. The published infographic for Quarter 2 is shown here. The employment rate of 74.2% for persons aged 15 to 64 years in Quarter 2 was the highest recorded since the series began in 1998 and up from 73.5% in Quarter 2 last year. The unemployment rate for persons aged 15 to 74 stood at 4.4% in Quarter 2. That's down 0.1 percentage point from a year ago. The annual change in participation rate for different age groups is shown along the bottom of the infographic. While participation fell slightly among both 15 to 24-year-olds and 25 to 34-year-olds, each down by 0.4 percentage points, participation among older age cohorts has increased, in particular among 55 to 64-year-olds, which was up by 2 percentage points. The estimate for the number of persons classified as being in employment in Quarter 2 stood at 2,643,000, an increase of just over 88,000 people, or 3.5% compared to a year ago. As stated in the previous slide, the employment rate for persons aged 15 to 64 was 74.2%. That's up 0.7 percentage points relative to a year ago. The seasonally adjusted estimate for the number of persons in employment in Quarter 2 was just below 2.63 million, or up by 8,600, or 0.3% compared to the previous quarter. That's Quarter 1 2023. The seasonally adjusted employment series over the last 4 years is shown here. The green line at the top shows the consistent growth in overall employment numbers over the past number of quarters. Overall employment increased by 0.3% in the latest quarter. For females, seasonally adjusted employment increased by 1.5% in the quarter to just under 1.25 million, and among males, the seasonally adjusted figure fell by 0.5% in the quarter to just under 1.4 million. The annual change in employment volume, an increase of 88,000 in total, is broken down by age and sex here. The strongest increase in employment volume is among females aged 35 and over, increasing by 56,000 overall. By comparison, there has been more modest growth among 15 to 24-year-olds and among those aged over 65. Employment rates for Quarter 2 by age and sex are shown here. The highest recorded rate is for males aged 35 to 44 at 90.8%. The employment rate for females aged 35 to 44 at 80.8% is above 80% for the first time and now exceeds the rate for females aged 25 to 34. Youth employment for persons aged 15 to 24 stood at 48.6% for females and 47.5% for males. The annual change in employment rate to Quarter 2 by age and sex is shown here. Two key features seen here are the strong increase seen among females aged 35 and over, and the employment rate for 15 to 24-year-olds and 25 to 34-year-olds, which has fallen in both cases. Employment rates for 15 to 64-year-olds in different regions of the country are shown here, with last year's rate also shown for comparison. The employment rate in the Dublin region at 76.2% is the highest in the country and is up by 0.5 percentage points on a year ago. The chart in this slide shows the estimated numbers of persons in employment in Quarter 2 by economic activity or NACE sector compared to a year ago. There were notable increases observed in the public administration and defence sector, up by 14,200 or 11.2%, and in the human health and social work activities sector, up by 18,600 or 5.6%. The largest percentage decrease was in the agriculture, forestry and fishing sector, down 6,600 or 6.3% compared to Quarter 2 last year. The chart on this slide compares the number of hours worked per week by economic sector in quarter 2 compared to a year ago. Overall, the estimated average number of hours worked per week in quarter 2 stood at 84.1 million hours per week, up 1.1 million hours per week, or 1.3%. A breakdown by economic sector is shown here. There was growth in most sectors, but industry and construction were both down marginally, and education was also down, again marginally. The chart in this slide shows the share of those employed by full-time versus part-time employment in quarter 2. 88% of males indicated that they work full-time, while 69% of females worked full-time. Part-time underemployment, that's those who work part-time but who would like to work more hours for more pay, increased to just under 140,000 in quarter 2. Around 1 in 5 part-time workers, and an increase of around 25,000 compared to a year ago. The slide here shows the breakdown for males and females compared to last year. And the chart in this slide looks at the proportion of employed persons who have indicated that they work at least some of their time at home. In quarter 2 2023, 1 in 5 people indicated that they mainly work from home, defined as at least half of the days worked in the previous 4 weeks, with a further 13% indicating that they worked from home sometimes. The proportion of people mainly working from home has fallen steadily since peaking at 37% in quarter 1 of 2021. Turning now to unemployment, and again using the standard ILO criteria, the number of persons aged 15 to 74 years who were classified as unemployed in quarter 2 stood at 121,200, with an associated unemployment rate of 4.4%. The number unemployed was slightly lower than a year ago when the rate was 4.5%. The seasonally adjusted estimate for unemployed is at 113,900, while the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate in quarter 2 was 4.2%, and that's unchanged since the previous quarter. The seasonally adjusted trend in the unemployment rate over the last 4 years is shown here for males and for females and overall. The seasonally adjusted unemployment rates have fluctuated a little over recent quarters, but the overall rate is at 4.2% in quarter 2, slightly higher for males and slightly lower for females. Unemployment rates for quarter 2 by age and sex are shown in the chart here. The youth unemployment rate for 15 to 24-year-olds was 12.7% for males and 11.6% for females. Unemployment rates were considerably lower among people in older age categories, with a rate of 2.1% recorded for females aged 45 to 54 years old. The annual change to quarter 2 in the employment rate by age and sex are shown in this chart. Unemployment has increased among 15 to 24-year-olds and among 25 to 34-year-olds. The rate of unemployment among older age cohorts has fallen, driven by declines in particular among females. Just under 32,000 people were classified as long-term unemployed, that is, unemployed for 12 months or longer, and this accounted for around 1 in 4 of those who are unemployed. The long-term unemployment rate in quarter 2 stood at 1.2%, unchanged from the corresponding quarter last year. And looking now at the estimates for the overall labour force, comprised of all persons aged 15 and over who are classified as either employed or unemployed, was estimated to be just over 2.76 million in quarter 2. That's up 3.4% compared to a year ago. The estimated labour market participation rate for persons aged 15 and over for quarter 2 was 65.7%, an increase of 0.4 percentage points on the corresponding quarter last year. The seasonally adjusted participation rate in quarter 2 at 65.3% was up 0.2 percentage points in the quarter. In terms of decomposing the change in the labour force, there was a positive demographic effect of 68,300 and a smaller positive participation effect of 21,500 over the year. which gave rise to an overall increase in the participation rate over the year from 65.2% to 65.7%. Seasonally adjusted participation rates over the last 4 years are shown in this slide. The seasonally adjusted participation rate has increased marginally but remained relatively stable over the last 8 quarters now and stands at 70.6% for males and 60.5% for females in quarter 2. The annual change in the labour market for participation rates in the year to quarter 2 by age and sex are shown in this slide. Similar to previous slides, we see a contrasting picture between younger cohorts and older cohorts. There has been a decrease in the participation rate for males and females in the 15 to 24-year-old and the 25 to 34-year-old age groups, but there has been an increase among older age cohorts and particularly strong increase among females. There was also a decrease among males aged 35 to 44. The number of persons who are not in the labour force, that is, neither employed nor unemployed, stood at just under 1.45 million in quarter 2, an increase of 21,000 or 1.5% on a year ago. The seasonally adjusted figure for those not in the labour force, at just under 1.46 million, remained unchanged from the previous quarter. And so, in summary, the employment rate of 74.2% for persons aged 15 to 64 years in quarter 2 was the highest recorded since the series began in 1998 and up from 73.5% in quarter 2 last year. The unemployment rate for persons aged 15 to 74 stood at 4.4% in quarter 2. That's down by 0.1 percentage point from 4.5% a year ago. And while participation fell among both 15 to 24-year-olds and 25 to 34-year-olds, participation among older age cohorts has increased, in particular among 55 to 64-year-olds, which was up by 2 percentage points. And that concludes this results presentation for the Labour Force Survey for quarter 2 2023. Results for quarter 3 are scheduled for publication in the week beginning the 20th of November. I'll see you then, and thanks for watching.